points in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla in the island of St. Vincent. It is a very intriguing clash between these two sides, both occupying the bottom of their Group F table. You get your look at the weather, 84 degrees, classic Caribbean heat in the summer, as the Vincy Heat hope to notch their first points of this 2026 qualifying slate. Here's your look at the table in Group F. It has been a rocky start, no doubt, for both St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla, both 4 points off that top two. Of course, the top two sides progressing to the third round of qualifiers in the Concacaf stages. And effectively, both these teams need a win tonight. While neither are eliminated with a draw, at least at this very moment, a loss would seal their fate and doom them to a premature exit in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. Hello and welcome once again here from Arnos Vale Stadium. Sam Goldfarb bringing you all of the action as the two teams take the pitch. It is St. Vincent in their classic yellow with the blue accents, Anguilla in the white with the baby blue shorts. We'll step aside briefly here from Kingstown when we return a look at our lineups and kickoff from Arnos Vale Stadium.
I'm gonna send them to go get it real quick.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the touchdown.
Just about set for kickoff here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is the homestanding nation desperate for 3 points to stay in contention in Group F against an Anguilla side that is also playing for its World Cup life. St. Vincent squad that enjoyed one of the most successful Nations League campaigns of its existence in League B, and you get your look at the lineup. A lot of products from the Vincentian top flight. Men up front, Cornelius Stewart, certainly the lad to watch. Number 9, the captain at 35 years of age in his 19th season of professional football. Currently, St. Vincent and the Grenadines' second all-time leading goal scorer. He is the danger man to watch for the Vincy Heat. Your officials, Stefan Dewar, leads things. He is partnered by a trio of excellent assistants. He will preside over this 4th ever clash between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla. Olex Anderson, the captain, out to exchange pleasantries with his counterpart Jermaine Hughes. And we are just about set to get things underway. Stefan Dewar, our lead official, Melvin Reed and Kimar Gale, his assistants, Roger Vindas from Costa Rica, our 4th official this evening. On the other side of things, for an Anguilla squad that has yet to notch a win in World Cup qualifying in its young history, they also trot out a similar formation to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is headlined, of course, by the man with the captain's armband, Jermaine Hughes, one of the elder statesmen of this Anguilla squad. And now you get your look at the lineup graphic. A 41-year-old between the sticks in Jelani Lawrence. And then as you head further up the pitch, Jerron Gale, the number 16 in white tonight. He was the AFA Senior League's Golden Boot winner in the 23-24 season. He's partnered by Varian Cardi and Aiden Scipio. A fearsome front three that could cause some danger on the counterattack for head coach Keith Jeffrey's side. Just about set to get things underway. Here from Arnos Vale Stadium, just outside the capital city of Kingstown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was built to be a cricket venue, seats 18,000. It also is the home of Vincy Heat. And it was packed to the gills a few months back during the Gold Cup prelims clash with Jamaica, which nearly in leg one ended in a thrilling result. We await our referee's signal. Stefan Dewar presiding over all of the action. First meeting in over 10 years between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla. And well, a false alarm as now St. Vincent will have a kickabout. It will be St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as we mentioned previously, in their yellow kits. Black numbers going left to right on your screen. Anguilla in the white kits with the light blue numbers and shorts right to left. And will be Cornelius Stewart to get us underway when Stefan Dewar finally gives us the signal. It's a must-win for both these sides. The question is, can one side notch the 3 points? Well, all eyes on him. Doesn't seem to be in a rush to get the match on by any means. It is a young Anguilla side, a number of teenagers in the squad. A defensive midfield pairing of Keontae Brooks and Giovanni Leverre, with an average age of about 16 and a half years of age. A 15-year-old in the starting 11 in Leverre, making his first competitive appearance. After featuring a bit for the U20s a year ago. We finally get the signal and we are underway here from Kingstown. St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla locking horns in what effectively is a must-win clash. Takes that stride toward the top two, the coveted top two spots, which progress to the next round of qualifying if there is a loser, they will be eliminated at the end of the evening. For those joining us, we welcome you into Arnos Stadium. Sam Goldfarb, excited to bring you all of the action here on a warm and humid night just outside the capital city on the island of St. Vincent. And here is Olex Anderson, the captain, one of a pair of Vincentian players who has made his name in the USL Championship. For those fans of the American game, you will be familiar with a few of the names tonight. Ezra Hendrickson is a name that many will be familiar with, a former Chicago Fire manager, now at the helm of his nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and has overseen considerable progress, a side that achieved its most ever points in a Nations League campaign this past fall. Here's a quick foray forward from Vincey Heat. It's chopped to the back post, knocked across the face to Anderson, and just over the bar. Well, a glaring chance that goes begging for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Both Stephen Pierre and Olex Anderson having a bite at the apple. Jelani Lawrence and company dodging a major blow early. It's a lovely chip. And Pierre mishits it. It falls quite kindly for Anderson. Just mercifully bounces over that crossbar. On the other side of things, Keith Jeffrey, the 50-year-old, is at the helm of Anguilla, appointed at the start of 2024. And while Anguilla doesn't have exactly a rich history of winning, he has overseen some memorable moments already. As Anderson to the touchline, in front of goal, and out of danger, and already a couple warning shots early for the Soccer Dolphins to contend with. Keith Jeffrey helping Anguilla reach the second round of Concacaf qualifying for the first time ever, defeating Turks and Caicos across 2 legs on a penalty shootout. As you get another look at this chance, decent interplay. Anderson already making a menace of himself. It's not dealt with very confidently by any means, and Alexander Fleming and company fortunate that that wasn't tapped in. Thompson. Unsurprisingly, lion's share of possession dominated by the host thus far. Pierre, inviting ball forward. Bounces off his line and times it very well. Only as far as DL Spring. It's off his line again to collect. Well, we mentioned Anguilla's goalkeeper, 41 years of age, playing for Docks United FC in the AFA Senior League, which is the top flight of Anguillan football. A 2-time defending champion in the AFA Senior Male League. It's a competition that has historically been dominated by Roaring Lions, which has a large contingent on this Soccer Dolphins squad for this window, but it's been a recent run for Docks United that has put them atop Anguilla's football ranks. There's their first proper sojourn forward. Decent ball to Gale. Runs into a thicket of Orange kids. Well, just under 5 minutes gone. On the outskirts of Kingstown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Group F action in the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifiers in Concacaf. In the second round, midway through the group stages, it's 4 matches. Top 2 teams in the 5-team groups progress to the 3rd round, and then that's where things get very interesting. The final round of qualifying, 3 teams automatically progressing to join the United States, Canada, and Mexico. and then 2 teams with a chance to compete in the Inter-Confederation playoffs later this year. Here is Stephen Pierre, ushered back to Andrew Johnson, Philadelphia native who's chosen to represent St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Pierre, choked off it by the English-born Kieran Lake Bryant. On the other side of things, Garwin Davis, 21 years of age, making just a 7th international start for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Lemus Christopher was the mainstay and was included in the squad, but not in the 23-man entity tonight. Anderson, very involved early on as the captain. Stewart went down on the edge of the area. Referee waves appeals away. Here's the first proper touch by Jordan Gale. Starting up front, somewhat surprising team news. Many may have expected Lamar Carpenter, who at just 21 years old has impressed, has ripped off the 5th most goals in Anguillan football history at the national team level. Of course, it's not a particularly high bar to clear. The record holder has 5. For a nation that did not begin major FIFA competitions until the 2002 World Cup qualifying window. He has been a regular feature up front over the past couple years, and he's on the bench tonight. Wonder how someone like Gale, who's gotten more consistent minutes in the professional ranks in Anguilla, will fare. There is your look at an Anguillan hero of sorts, Luke Paris, 30 years old, English-born defender who's opted to represent Anguilla. And well, what a moment he provided for the Soccer Dolphins last year to kickstart World Cup qualifying. He's responsible for Anguilla's only World Cup qualifying goal in the last 24 years. It came in the second leg of that Turks and Caicos clash. An equalizer on the stroke of halftime, which ultimately helped power Anguilla in extra time in the eventual penalty shootout. Makes his trade at center back this evening no different. First corner of the night going St. Vincent and the Grenadines' way. Amazing run from Micah Joseph. Read to perfection, though, by Chivari Leveray, the 15-year-old, making his first appearance in a competitive fixture for the senior national team. He's Najima Burgeon to take. In swing. Lost to the edge of the area. Charles. Burgeon. That's the run of Rolling towards the back stick. Headed along. This is dangerous. Last-ditch interference does the job, and the whistle sounds against Vincent Heat anyways. Perhaps Alexander Fleming has come off worse for wear there. Another inviting cross. Little flick-on header. Anderson and others giving chase, and eventually just runs out of play. Well, 10 minutes gone. St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Anguilla, a fourth ever meeting between these two nations in competitive action. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has won the previous three. It's the first meeting in a qualifying environment since 2014. That was a Caribbean Cup qualifier back in the day. St. Vincent and the Grenadines triumphed in rather dominant 4-0 fashion. We have another corner in the offing. Micah Joseph, the man in the vicinity. Seed control to Najima Burjan. Another in-swinger. This time doesn't clear the first line of defense. One-way traffic in the early stages. You probably wouldn't have evaluated it any other way entering tonight. Cross from Joseph. Ushered along to Stewart. Deflection took the sting out of it, and rather routine for Lawrence. Well, one element, undercurrent I should say, of this fixture that is intriguing is St. Vincent and the Grenadines a little more experience in competitive environments, at least in 2025. A team that, as we mentioned off the top, took on Jamaica in a Gold Cup prelims a couple months back in March, and actually battled Jamaica to a draw. Alex Anderson opened the scoring on the counterattack in the second half, and then, if not for a very late Leon Bailey penalty shout, it would have been one of the bigger wins in Vincent Heat's history. Instead, they settle for a draw, and then unfortunately things really unraveled for them away from home with 3-0 defeat in the second leg. But it has not been too long since many of these players have played in extremely high stakes environments. For Anguilla, that's not come since October, when their League C campaign of the Nations League ended. Since then, St. Vincent and the Grenadines playing 4 competitive fixtures. All friendlies for Anguilla since the calendar turned in 2025. Stewart dinking it over the top towards the 20-year-old Stephen Pierre. Excellent challenge. Giovanni Leverret. You see Pierre here get down the byline. Making himself a nuisance. So far, the 15-year-old has looked up to the pace of it. Already the third corner in the opening quarter of an hour for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it is probably the least appetizing delivery of the lot. The match plan appears to be clear from the visitors. Park numbers behind it, unsurprisingly. Just waiting for that golden chance on the counter. I think that likely would have been what Keith Jeffrey charted out to his team pre-match. Can't afford to expose yourself and concentrate too much forward, especially given the pace and ability St. Vincent and the Grenadines has going forward. Here's Olex Anderson. Cutting on to his right. Now Pierre. Carve out that space to shoot. The last-ditch tackle from Leveret does the job once again. This has been the battle to watch on this right flank. See Stephen Pierre thinks he has his defender beaten. A late challenge from Leveret, knocking it out of play for another corner. Question is his fourth time the charm from this near side. It's a bit tighter on goal. It was loose. Foul, though, against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Overzealous trying to win it back from Lawrence. He certainly is one of the oldest players to feature for Anguilla. It is a national team that is known for giving younger lads a chance, and they actually gave Shamor Brown a look towards the tail end of May between the sticks, the 16-year-old, but the higher stakes clash that occurs with the backdrop of their qualifying campaign hanging in the balance. They opt for the much more experienced Lawrence. So far as set to cope with an aerial bombardment from the hosts. Joseph. Charged out of danger again. What is this St. Vincent and the Grenadines squad that pulls a considerable share of its talent in the SGVFF First Division? As here's a chance for Anderson, and the flag is raised on the near side. When you look at tonight's squad, 6 of the 11 players playing in Vincentian football. As you see this terrific over-the-top delivery, yes, Anderson appears to be a couple steps beyond the last defender. Definitely a clever idea from Micah Joseph. Anderson put his boots through it. It looked like Lawrence had it covered anyways. For Anguilla, it's no different, although you do see a presence of English non-league talents throughout the Soccer Dolphins squad as well. A few players who are English-born who opted to represent Anguilla, or even performed a one-time switch deep into their professional careers. Also a chance for exposure, maybe to attract clubs higher up the English football pyramid, while representing your nation. All beyond the reach of Lake Bryant. On the precipice of the 20-minute threshold, St. Vincent and the Grenadines on the island of St. Vincent, to be precise tonight, just outside the capital city of Kingstown. A warm, humid evening. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has taken the fight to their visitors so far, and they do so again. Anderson is through, and Anderson scores. They created chance after chance, and Olex Anderson finally breaks through for Vincy Heat. 1-0. Well, he's a proven goal scorer, and when you give him this much space, he'll almost always deliver. Times his run of perfection, goes at the near post. Jelani Lawrence diving early and guessing all incorrect. It's not a finish that will be for the cameras, but it's one that does the job. Routine and number 10 on the score sheet. Well, there's the star man, Olex Anderson, 29-year-old who has made a name for himself the last 5-6 years in the USL ranks. Moving up to the USL Championship with North Carolina FC last year, and the goal scoring hardly dipped. Double-digit goals in back-to-back years with NCFC. This season, a bit more of an up-and-down start. For the national team, his production has been unquestioned. St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a favorable spot midway through the first half. Well, Olex Anderson started to hit his stride prior to international duty striking. Of course, his club's still in the midst of their season. There's no international break, as the American calendar doesn't exactly align kindly with the World Football calendar. Olex Anderson, a goal and an assist in his last league appearance against Oakland Roots. Has carried that over to his first competitive match here this summer with St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Someone who's bounced around the United States for quite some time after beginning his career in Vincentian football. Back in the day, almost 9 years ago, made 17 appearances with Seattle Sounders. But never really cracked that first team, though, and settled for being one of the more dynamic attacking presences in the American second tier. Well, now Anguilla forced to come out of their shell for neutral viewing. That would be the desired outcome. The question is, can they stop the bleeding at the back? That's the 13th goal they've conceded in 3 World Cup qualifying matches this round. There's Lake Bryant, weaving past his defender. And he was in an offside possession on the return ball. Well, throughout the campaign, you wondered how St. Vincent and the Grenadines would respond. Was dropping their first 2 matches, but competitive, especially more so than the scorelines indicated. Scored first against Suriname before they were hit with a barrage. Anderson again, brought down in the area. Referee points to the spot. No questions asked. And the danger man making the difference once again. Well, it's a textbook penalty. You see Anderson latch onto this, just skips beyond the defender and Keon Lee. Late challenge that doesn't seem to get much of the ball, in fact, gets none of it. And there are no debates about that decision. St. Vincent and the Grenadines can put their stamp on this one early on. Chance from 12 yards for Cornelius Stewart, the all-time caps leader for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to double the lead. And he does. Vincy Heat 2 to the good with 2 goals in 5 minutes. And they have full control over this Caribbean clash. Well, Anderson winning the penalty. As we mentioned previously, a late tackle from Keon Lee. There's 0 questions about that. And Stewart, cool as you like, just picks his corner. Lawrence guesses the right way, but can't reach it. And the most experienced presence in this Vincy Heat squad flashing aplomb from 12 yards. Well, it's Cornelius Stewart's 27th goal at the international level in his 76th international cap. Someone who bagged a pair of goals and a trio of assists in 6 Nations League matches this past fall. In his 19th year of professional football, and he's someone who's traveled around the globe at the club level, playing in the Indonesian top flight at the moment, after a breakout 2 years in the Bangladeshi Premier League. The international level now 5 away from matching the record for most goals scored in St. Vincent and the Grenadines national team history. And it is a history that dates back rather decently. Record holder, Chandel Samuel, played from 2001 to 2016. It's now just a 6-goal gap between himself and Cornelius Stewart. Make it 5 with that tally. Well, midway through the first half, and it is going according to plan for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. One-way traffic and a pair of tallies 5 minutes apart. Mike Bryan is fouled. Maury Lynch, who's back in the squad after a prolonged hiatus from the national team ranks. This is his 4th international cap. Joseph. And now space on the counter for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Anderson. And Stewart running with him. Still Olex Anderson. Overweights it a touch for Pierre. Flashing ball in. Runs all the way through. Anderson toward the byline. Firing it across the face and no one there to greet it. For Anguilla, this is the 3rd consecutive qualifying match in which they've conceded multiple goals. Entering this evening, been outscored 12-0 across their first 2 World Cup qualifying matches. Still have yet to score here in this group stage. Not a prolific team in terms of goal scoring in World Cup qualifying. In fact, entering this evening across their around 25-year history of competing in World Cup qualifiers, they'd scored just 3 goals. It was a 24-year goal drought that was broken by Luke Paris at the spot in that Turks and Caicos 2nd leg, at least in World Cup qualifying competition. Thompson spraying this wide. Nodded along to Anderson. Wanted the run of Joseph. Pierre. Stewart coming deep to claim now. Back into the path of Pierre. Vinci Heat continuing to knock it about with a new level of confidence. You see Stewart gets here first. Definitely a late challenge from the 18-year-old Keontae Brooks. This is a decently appetizing spot. Would be an audacious effort to attempt from here, though. Najima Burgeon. One of his teammates in the vicinity. Bergen. Decent vertical ball, just beyond the reach of Stewart. Pierre was also lingering. Inside the final quarter of an hour of this first half, the usual suspects striking for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Olex Anderson and Cornelius Stewart with 2 goals 4 minutes apart. As Vincy Heat in the driver's seat, as they look for what would be a desperately needed 3 points in Group F. Remember, entering tonight, we showed you the standings. This is the only match in Group F play, at least on this Wednesday evening. Both teams 4 points behind the top 2. Suriname atop the group with 6. Puerto Rico and El Salvador in 2nd and 3rd, respectively, with 4 points apiece. So effectively, if either of these sides hope to launch a dramatic surge up the table and progress to the 3rd round of this competition, they must win. When you look going forward, if St. Vincent and the Grenadines can see this out over the course of the next hour or so, they will have an opportunity to at least make some noise around the top 2, because their final match comes at Puerto Rico on June 10th. Which is Tuesday. Puerto Rico, in the meantime, plays Suriname away from home. Suriname probably the group favorite. This is through to Anderson. An excellent last-second challenge from Paris. And he does just enough to impede the oncoming attacker. Scipio. Notice the glorious hair. He has the longest hair in Concacaf. Wears a waistband to keep his hair in place during the matches. 34-year-old Aiden Scipio. Lee loses out. And here is Spring. Escorted wide, numbers once again for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Morgan shrugged off it. No real semblance of control showed by the visitors, at least to this point. Just 10 minutes from halftime, St. Vincent and the Grenadines still bossing the lion's share of the ball, even after going 2 up. Lynch keeps this in play. Ross is deflected and charged away. Look at this stop one more time. You see Anderson bearing down on goal. It's a perfectly timed tackle from Luke Paris. He can't afford to get that wrong, because if he does, it's a second penalty in 10 minutes for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Times the slide to the absolute best of his ability and does the job. Gale. Diamonds FC. The many Anguillan sides represented in this Anguilla national team for this window. 23-man squad that is almost entirely exclusive to either Anguilla or English non-league football. There is one man representing an amateur league club in the United States as well. That would be Antonio Fleming, who's on the bench here this evening. Anderson turns on the afterburners, darting it across. Out of play for another corner. Well, Olex Anderson's in a different gear this evening. You see him just drop the shoulder after receiving this. He knows he has everybody beaten for pace. Takes on two defenders at once, leaves them both in the dust. And a corner was probably the best possible outcome there for Anguilla. Micah Joseph stands over this. First corner from the far side, despite the vast count for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's not the best delivery by any means. Gale. Well, to give you a sense that how unlikely the statistical trends seem to point toward Anguilla coming back in this fixture. I alluded to it earlier, but this is a Soccer Dolphins side that, since debuting in World Cup qualifiers in the 2002 cycle, starting in 2000, just after the turn of the century, they have scored just 3 goals in World Cup qualifiers, have participated in every campaign since 2002. Would be required to match that tally in order to come from behind and take all 3 points. It's important to note the way the Concacaf World Cup qualifiers have worked, though, haven't exactly been conducive to volume for Anguilla, a side that regularly has begun its World Cup qualifier campaigns in the first round of the competition, which has often been 1-match or 2-leg affairs. This season, no different. Only 4 teams forced to compete in that perilous environment. The difference is, though, Keith Jeffrey seeing them over the line in his first time of asking. When you look at the total of World Cup qualifiers this Anguilla side has played, it's just the 19th ever match they've logged in 25 years. Tevin Thompson making his first major international appearance tonight. He's definitely looked comfortable. Stewart, decently weighted through ball. Here's cross deflected harmlessly back to Jelani Lawrence. Well, you can't fault him. Not much you can do about the penalty. The first goal was a tough ask. Maybe could have done better at his near post, especially considering Olex Anderson put it that direction. But not a shabby opening 40 minutes for someone who's seen his team overrun. Blake Bryan is slow to return to his feet. .50-50 challenge. Deal Spring a step late. Maybe with the position he caught him Fortunate to escape without some sort of booking. Well, there's Kieran Lake Bryan. London native, plays for Edgware Town in the English 9th tier. Has played as high as the National League with Aldershot Town in 22-23. For those unfamiliar, that is where AFC Wrexham began their journey up the English Football League pyramid. Of course, now in the EFL Championship after successive promotions. Currently, Kieran Lake Bryan playing a bit further down the pyramid. The bulk of his career has been spent somewhere between the 8th and 10th tiers of English football. Has been a fixture of the Anguilla national team as Scipio goes down in the area. Referee waves away any appeals. Anderson. Bergen. Pierre. Patience from Vincy Heat once more. They lose out on the edge of the area, though. Here's Gale. Jamari Lynch has been booked for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So first man in the book for either side. Just shy of halftime. Just had a couple of promising moments from right back. Another rather new addition to St. Vincent and the Grenadines 11. Just his second international start. Still a 2-0 scoreline. Anderson and Stewart making the difference as we inch closer and closer to halftime in this World Cup qualifier. Tevin Thompson. Decent ball through. One to latch on to Joseph's first time hit. Stewart. Bergen's cross. The way out to Pierre. Is there a third before the break on the cards? Spring. Terrific link up. Rolls through to Stewart. May have been offside anyways. We've seen his confidence grow since the goal. In many respects was left on an island in the early stages just due to the sheer dominance of Oleg Sanderson on that left-hand side. And either way, there's a number of tactical concerns to work out for the man on the touchline. You just saw Keith Jeffrey. Soccer Dolphins have been overrun possessionally, and their key playmakers with very few touches of it. The likes of Jermaine Hughes, Jordan Gale, as well as Varian Cardi. Even Scipio no different. I just wonder if there's a way for Anguilla to at least gain some sort of foothold after this restart. Have a chance with their first corner of the night. And the first proper test for the 21-year-old Garwin Davis to navigate. Is there a late plot twist before intermission? Just 2 minutes of added time separate us from there. Varian Cardi standing over the set piece. 21-year-old who makes his trade in Limers FC in Anguilla. It's all the way through to Scipio. Harris brought down. This is arguably an even better position than the corner. Well, at least some late concerns to attend to. And Lynch, again, the man being talked to here. Gets ball first and then leaves his body dangling, and that's what draws the referee's ire. Nothing much more in it, though. Scipio stands over it. 34-year-old. His 13th international appearance with Anguilla. Has yet to log a goal contribution in his time with the Soccer Dolphins. This likely the final involvement going forward for Anguilla. Scipio toward the back post, and authoritatively by Davis. And he jumps on it after briefly spilling it. Perhaps one final break forward for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Birkin. Spring. Crossing it towards the back post. Pierre was in, but couldn't field it properly. And a major chance may have just gone begging. Well, there's a halftime whistle. A 2-0 advantage for St. Vincent and the Grenadines over Anguilla in what was a must-win contest. Goals by Oleg Sanderson and Cornelius Stewart, separated by just 4 minutes, have the hosts in the driver's seat. We will take a quick breather here from Kingstown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines when we return to look back at what was a one-way first half here at Arnos Vale Stadium. Kingstown in the island of St. Vincent. Here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a 2-0 advantage for Vincey Heat over Anguilla at halftime. Just about set for the start of the second half here from Arnos Vale Stadium. Sam Goldfarb bringing you all of the action here tonight. A clash in Group F between pointless teams, both desperate for a win to progress. Now both teams making alterations at intermission. For St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 2 changes. Najima Birkin exiting, as is Jamari Lynch. A pair of fullback swaps here as Courtney Franklin enters. On the other side of things, Keon Lee will vacate for Antoine Fleming. So changes at fullback pretty much across the board. So Antoine Fleming for Keon Lee, and then you see Burgeon and Lynch exit. Courtney Franklin, one of the men to replace Burgeon. Well, just about set for the start of the second half. We wait Stefan Dewar's whistle. It has been dominated so far by St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Question is, can they see this out and notch their first 3 points of the 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign? Back underway from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and right now the host definitely the happier of the 2 entities. As you see, Courtney Franklin already getting very involved early, scored in a friendly at the tail end of May. St. Vincent and the Grenadines playing 3 friendlies to get prepared for these World Cup qualifiers. For Anguilla, over the last 2 months, they played 5, and that likely has something to do with Anguilla not playing a competitive international fixture since October prior to tonight. Well, Scipio already fouled here by Micah Joseph. Pretty textbook, just the shove in the back. You get the lineup look at your screen now. In addition to Courtney Franklin entering the fold, Tristan Marshall also replacing Jamari Lynch, who was on a yellow card. Marshall is the usual fullback starter for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but was on the bench tonight. So a rare substitute appearance for someone who had only featured as a substitute once prior to this evening. Here's the ball into the area. It's a dangerous one. It was loose for a moment. Anderson unable to get his boot to it. And now Franklin. Spring. Onslaught of orange surging ahead again. Maybe some space for Lake Bryan on the break. Anguilla, very few touches of it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines half. Does not unfortunately change much here. For Anguilla, the 1 change. Keon Lee out. Fleming in. One of 3 Flemings on the roster. This is Antoine. Anderson laying it off. Only as far as DL Spring. Well, in addition to this being a question of result for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, goal difference will definitely play a role. A team that through the first 2 matches had a -5 goal differential, which really did not flatter them based on the performances they flashed against Suriname and El Salvador. Of course, scoring first in the 31st minute at Suriname, which, if you know anything about the Surinamese national team the last 3-4 years, they have added so much talent to the fold with the ability to add Dutch-born Surinamese players of Surinamese descent. And then, of course, against El Salvador, a team that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has had a bit of a regional rivalry with in the past calendar year. Alex Anderson did fire them level, but the unfortunate state of affairs in the second half was St. Vincent and the Grenadines conceded twice and ultimately did not have a chance to salvage a point in the late stages. Well, for that man on your screen, Jelani Lawrence, it was a busier first half than I'm sure he would have liked. The side peppered at times. It was only 2 shots on target, but still plenty of work to be done for him to minimize the quality of opportunity for his opposition. On the other side of things, Garwin Davis, nothing to really worry about. Anguilla's lone shot off target in the first half. A very easy 45 minutes to work his way back into international play. Here's another break forward. This time the cross deflected right into Lawrence's gloves. On the subject of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it was nearly a historic year for a multitude of reasons. Not only did we mention Ezra Hendrickson leading them to their most ever points in a Nations League campaign. That is obviously a very strong start with 13 points in 6 matches, but also finished just 2 points shy of winning their group in the Nations League. It would have been Group A and League B. It's the early defeat to El Salvador, in addition to a draw with Bonaire, which doomed them in many respects. They got themselves into the prelims, and as we mentioned, cost Jamaica quite the headache, as this is deflected and somehow doesn't clear the goal line. For a moment, it looked like Lawrence was in trouble. His own defender deflecting it towards the goal mouth. It's Anderson again. He just puts it in the quarter of uncertainty. I'll tell you what, Jermaine Hughes is very fortunate that that doesn't deflect in off him, and that Lawrence can pounce on it. Because Cornelius Stewart was inches from tapping it in himself. He is slow to return to his feet. "50 minutes gone here, and this a collective hold your breath moment for Vincy Heat supporters. One of their all-time leading scorers in Cornelius Stewart is sort of laboring after coming together with Jelani Lawrence. The elder statesman in Scipio alongside his gaffer, Keith Jeffrey. Stewart back to his feet. Appears rather content to try and get on with it. Both managers rather experienced. Keith Jeffrey, of course, someone who began his career in his native Trinidad and Tobago with San Juan Japlote FC. Spent 6 years in the TNT Pro League before stints with both Trinidad and Tobago's U15 side, as well as a brief month in charge of Turks and Caicos, a side which 3 years after his exit, he dispatched from this very World Cup qualifiers. Errant clearance, Anderson forced wide. Once again, St. Vincent and the Grenadines unable to pounce on a golden opportunity. Franklin. Stewart can't navigate through traffic. Perhaps time for Lake Bryan. Still looking to involve Jordan Gale, who's been left on an island for large spells of tonight's proceedings. Harris. Cardi. A rare foray forward for Anguilla. Tries for goal, and well, it lacked accuracy there. Not a bad break though. Varian Cardi on the receiving end of it. Another chance on the counter. Stewart, cross deflected. Cleared only as far as Andrew Johnson. Squirted wide once more. Decent drop of the shoulder this. Still afloat for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's not cleared convincingly. The follow-up effort just sailed high and wide. Decent pop from Tevin Thompson. Someone who spent the bulk of his career in Vincentian ranks, also has played in the Jamaican Premier League. Well, you see the cutback, issues clearing. Thompson just puts his laces through it. And unfortunately for him, it was never dipping. Plenty of ferocity behind the effort. Alexander Fleming just a bit ginger after that quick surge forward from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Well, important to note, an Anguilla side that, as we mentioned, does not exactly have the longest history of competing in FIFA competitions. We're not eligible to feature in World Cup qualifying until the 2002 cycle. Of course, Anguilla, a British overseas territory that contains just south of 15,000 people, so it's not the most vast selection of footballers. They do very well to develop young talent, and many players who debut when they're in their teens and show a history of remaining in the fold. Well worked here by Pierre. Due to the fact that, of course, Anguilla overseas territory of Britain, they weren't eligible to compete in World Cup qualifiers until the turn of the century. So it's only their 7th World Cup qualifying campaign. The finest of crosses from Pierre. By contrast, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, well, an island nation, contains over 100,000 people. 101,000 is the estimate as of 2 years ago. So definitely a more vast selection of players, especially considering that also, in addition to many players who have grown up on the island, they've also managed to attract a bevy of Canadian-born players of Vincentian descent. This ball was read relatively well by Antoine Fleming. Issues playing out once again, though, for Anguilla. Pierre has support as well. Pierre tries himself. Decent stop in the end by Lawrence. He was wrong-footed. Well, it all starts with this progressive pass from Tevin Thompson, and then Stephen Pierre decides to go for goal himself. It's a deflection, which actually seems to throw Lawrence off a touch. He's just able to recover on the ground and get a strong palm to it. In swinging ball and collected routinely by Lawrence. On the other side for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's a team that wasn't a FIFA member until 1992, but also has been playing competitive matches since the 1930s. For Anguilla, they did not play their first competitive fixture until 1985, and they were few and far between until they became a FIFA member. Definitely more time to develop for Vincy Heat. Franklin rolls to the back post and headed in. A third that should all but seal it for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it's Micah Joseph to deliver. A first international goal for the 22-year-old, and it's 3-0 St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Well, for starters, what a ball this is from Courtney Franklin. Joseph recycles it, excuse me, Spring does. And then Franklin just dinks this in with perfect curvature to elude a number of Anguillan defenders and headed ferociously by Joseph for his first international goal. Brilliant ball, terrific header, 3-0 Vincey Heat. And now St. Vincent and the Grenadines can taste the 3 points. Joseph makes way immediately after scoring, as does Stephen Pierre. 2 players in the attacking midfield trio will vacate. Garrett Lagertwood, one of the men to step in. On the hour mark, 3-0, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Micah Joseph's last involvement, his first international goal. And now hunting more carnage. Anderson just offside. Well, Micah Joseph, as we mentioned, 22 years of age, one of the Canadian-born players that has elected to represent St. Vincent and the Grenadines that we spoke about earlier. He was called up for the first time for the final 2 Nations League fixtures in November of last year. Just his 5th international cap, and he scores his first international goal. Did play a key role in both legs of the Jamaica Gold Cup prelims tie. In his last involvement sees him exit for Kyle Edwards, an experienced presence in USL Championship with Hartford Athletic. Well, for those just joining us, an hour gone. St. Vincent and the Grenadines 3 to the good. A scoreline that pretty much reflects their dominance. In addition, another change, Keontae Brooks out for Javis Jones. That is on Anguilla's side. Franklin again, headed on and headed in. A throttling for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Kyle Edwards scoring with his first touch. Ezra Hendrickson receiving immediate dividends with his substitution. Another sensational ball from one substitute in Franklin. A towering header from another in Edwards. Make it 4 for Vincey Heat. Just gets there before the goalkeeper. Manages to get his header up and down in time. And Kyle Edwards joining in on the goal-scoring party with his 6th international goal. 4-0 to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Edwards has been involved with St. Vincent and the Grenadines for 11 years. His 41st international cap. In just his 7th World Cup qualifying appearance, he scores. And now he latches onto this. Just overweights it for Anderson. Kyle Edwards at the club level, so much success. He did begin his career in the SGVFF First Division, which is the top flight in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But then he went to college, began his career in JUCO in the United States before finishing up at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley in his final 2 seasons. From there, has spent his professional days in the United States of America. 2 years with Rio Grande Valley, 3 more with Hartford Athletic. A stint in MLS Next Pro as well, with Houston Dynamo Dos in between. And with Hartford Athletic, he's hit a tear. 4 goal contributions in his last 3 league matches, including an assist in the cup competition. This is nodded forward, coming together between Davis and Joran Gale, for deeming that the goalkeeper got ball first. Well, it's definitely gotten out of hand for Keith Jeffrey and company. You just wonder if the name of the game is minimizing the severity of the defeat. although a defeat at all would effectively eliminate, in fact, Anguilla from finishing in the top 2 spots in Group F. Set piece here. Aiden Scipio, the only man standing over it. 34 years old, one of the veteran presences in the Anguillan national team ranks. Curled in, Edwards stabs away. When we approach the final 25 minutes, excuse me. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has put Anguilla to the sword in the second half. 2 goals in rather rapid succession. In fact, 3 minutes to be precise. Micah Joseph making it 3-0 in the 59th, and then his replacement, Kyle Edwards, adding a 4th with his first touch in the 62nd. And at this point, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has almost neutralized its negative goal difference from the first 2 matches. It was -5 through the opening 2 contests. If they are to find a 5th, unanswered, so to speak, it would be on a flat 0, which could help them for tiebreaker purposes at the end of the 4 contests. Edwards, the most recent goal scorer for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Played wide. Space to knock it across, instead just out for a goal kick. We've already mentioned what lies ahead for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It would be a massive 6-pointer with Puerto Rico on June 10th. That is in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. So away from home to finish up their second round qualifying slate for the 2026 World Cup. For Anguilla, they host El Salvador in a match that actually might mean more to St. Vincent and the Grenadines than it would for Anguilla themselves. Because, of course, El Salvador currently level with Puerto Rico on 4 points. Of course, in order for Vincy Heat to find a way into the top 2, they would need at least one of those 2 sides to hit a speed bump in their final 2 matches. Two more changes being readied for Anguilla. Hearing word that it will be Nicholas Loblack and Marley Ipinson Fabian. First man to exit is Luke Paris, the center back. 67 minutes for someone who usually goes the full 90. Meanwhile, as well, Varian Cardi exits to follow. So Loblack in the heart of defense in a like-for-like swap. In addition, Pinson Fabian replacing Cardi on the left flank. Double change for Anguilla. At this point, trying to get some of their less experienced presences valuable minutes. Cardi exits at arguably Anguilla's best chance of the match since the restart, I should say. On the counter, fortunately, he overcooked his effort and blasted it wide. A frustrating night for him comes to an unfortunate conclusion. Vincent Fabian making his 12th international appearance, someone who has yet to record an international goal or assist, but has returned to the regular national team fold after a near 5-year international hiatus from 2019 to 2024. Stewart And this is Edwards, tries from afar, right into the path of the defender of it for Anguilla. And more space on the break. Cut back, dinked across to Anderson. A brace for Olex Anderson, and a fifth for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Full out domination, 5-0 Vincy Heat. Olex Anderson, it has been his night. You see here a terrific ball forward, just into the path of the substitute Lagerwood, then cuts this back, and the cross is timed to perfection. The run also timed brilliantly by the captain. An excellent move from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And yet another tally to Olex Anderson's loaded cabinet of international goals. 23 now for his career, 2 tonight. And you wonder if he stays on in pursuit of the hat trick. If this result were to hold, St. Vincent and the Grenadines would have an even goal difference. Still well behind the top 2. But it would be within striking distance of El Salvador, who currently sit 3rd place in the Group F table. Final 20 minutes to play. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has shown no signs of slowing down. An obliteration of visiting Anguilla tonight. There was some really strong fighting spirit shown by the visitors, especially in the opening 20 minutes, to weather that initial storm. And even after falling 2-0 behind, they managed to minimize the quality of opportunity by their hosts. But since the restart, things have very much unraveled for the Soccer Dolphins. They find themselves 5-0 in the hole. Edwards, one of those goal scorers, receives it back. He's looking for Anderson. That would have been quite a slick move indeed. Stewart. Anderson flicking it along, held to Franklin. Room to cross once more. Lagerwood. There's Marshall in the vicinity as well. Finally cleared out to Scipio. Here's the first touch of the night for Pinson Fabian. For Anguilla, in line to lose their 3rd consecutive group match by 4 or more goals. It's been a difficult second round of qualifying, no doubt, but even with them going out this evening, the campaign represents progress. The first time outside of the initial stage of Concacaf's World Cup qualifiers. They earned that hard-fought victory as Edwards tries to curl this for goal and got underneath it a bit much. A triumph over Turks and Caicos. Of course, earning their first Nations League victory to kickstart 24-25 as well. It's been a strong calendar year for Anguilla, at least in comparison to what they've done in years past. As one further change, Kanaja Joseph replaces DL Spring, a defensive midfield swap. On the other side for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a team that at its peak ranked 73rd in the world rankings. They've since seen that plummet to 172nd as of April. There have been signs of progress under Ezra Hendrickson, and they can complete the miraculous turnaround. They would progress to their first ever final stage of World Cup qualifying. They've reached the penultimate stage on a number of occasions. Threaded through again, late tackle, appeals for penalty. Instead, they'll settle for a free kick on the edge of the area. no break for Anguilla's back line. First touch for Kanaija Joseph, who nearly joined Kyle Edwards on that instant delivery list. Instead, Stewart clattered down, and this is well within Kyle Edwards' range. Have to get this up and down very quickly over the wall. And it certainly favors that right boot of Edwards. On the precipice of the final quarter hour. Edwards to take, got it up, and it was an aesthetically pleasing free kick, but not one that found the target. Decent technique on this, just doesn't get it down in time, and that was a major problem with a set piece this close to the goal. Fleming. Jordan Gill was still in hot pursuit. Credit to him as applied maximum effort, even given the result on the scoreboard. On a frustrating night where they've supplied him with very little service. Edwards looking through to Franklin. Already a pair of assists tonight. Stood up immediately by his defender in Antoine Fleming. As we mentioned, for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, furthest they've ever been in World Cup qualifying, the 4th round for the 2018 cycle. Now granted, far more stages of qualifying back then than there are this year, and that's of course a product of 3 of CONCACAF's biggest entities already being qualified and hosting the competition. The penultimate stage has been where St. Vincent and the Grenadines has regularly fallen. This represents a step in the right direction to overcoming that hurdle, although it will take 3 points and help elsewhere ahead of their final match on Tuesday. Joseph, errant ball back. Hernman knows a thing or two about accomplishing a lot as both the player and coach. Someone who we mentioned spent about a year and a half at the helm of Chicago Fire. It was a tumultuous stint there, but since becoming the head man of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, has been greeted with a bit more success. As a player, though, someone who played in the MLS for 12 seasons, won 3 MLS Cups, and the 2000 CONCACAF Champions League with LA Galaxy. Someone who's won a fair bit throughout his life. Edwards looking through for Courtney Franklin. He was through for a moment. An excellent intervention in the end. Decent challenge that from Antoine Fleming. Stewart now curling it towards Edwards. Down of danger towards Scipio. Overcooked for Cornelius Stewart. Speaking of players with MLS experience, Cornelius Stewart, during his vast travels over his near 2 decades as a pro footballer, did feature for Vancouver Whitecaps. Played for both the first team and the reserve team shortly after the decade turned to 2010. Last 8 years, though, across Asian football. 2 in Bangladesh, most recently now in Indonesia. A well-traveled individual up front. He's played in virtually every footballing context at the club level you can imagine. Bryan. Is there consolation on the cards for Anguilla? Scipio immediately shoved off it by Nigel Charles. Legert Wood past one defender. Towards the edge of the area. Joseph has a pop. Nothing that troubles Lawrence. On to the final 10 minutes, and for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, this not only represents a bounce back from last June's brutal World Cup qualifying window, it also represents a dominant result after, frankly, struggling on Thursday in the friendly against British Virgin Islands, a fixture that they felt they should have won. And they're back to winning ways here tonight. Stewart. Threaded through to Anderson, an excellent save. And the flag was up anyways. For a moment, Oleg Sanderson saw his name up in lights. Won't achieve his hat trick on this occasion. Excellent build-up. Stewart disguises his ball brilliantly, but Anderson does time his run just a second early. It was an excellent kick save by Jelani Lawrence anyways. Well, now you understand why the gaffers left him on the pitch. Looking for that hat trick moment. Stewart. Dinked forward to Franklin. He's onside. First time effort. Didn't quite contain the technique required. Well, he wants more. Every chance, you see how animated Ezra Hendrickson is on the touchline. Every goal, you see the way he celebrates with his team. There's a clear intention to rack up as many tallies as possible tonight, both for goal difference sake and confidence sake. What a job he has done. Of course, his predecessor, Olmeth Williams, departing after that brutal June stretch, which we have spoken about ad nauseum this evening. He's tasked with resuscitating their World Cup qualifying hopes. This is a step in the right direction, in addition to what was a strong calendar year in 24-25 for St. Vincent and the Grenadines in competitive action. Pushing Jamaica to the brink in the second leg, holding that lead in the first leg until the very final second when Leon Bailey converted from the spot to equalize. It was nearly a smash and grab in Kingstown. It wasn't just Leon Bailey. That is a team loaded with Premier League talent in Jamaica, which would be a potential favorite to be one of the additional Concacaf sides to qualify. Of course, you look at their group right now. In Group E, that is loaded at the top with Guatemala and Jamaica in that group. Figure that Guatemala-Jamaica match on the final match day on Tuesday go a long way to determining who has that layer of comfort. Kanaija Joseph. Plenty of space now on this far side for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The ball from Marshall just off the mark. Joseph again. Leggert Wood. Dink towards the back post. Franklin, what a finish! It is 6 for Vincy Heat, and it is 6 in sensational fashion. A scintillating goal. And Courtney Franklin enjoying a terrific night off the bench. Times his run at perfection. First time with the left boot off of a terrific delivery from Kanaija Joseph. Just spectacular all around. The 20-year-old is having a dazzling display. A goal and 2 assists. Entered tonight with just 2 international goals to his name. 6-0, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The North Leeward Predators fixture. Courtney Franklin has helped turn this from dominant victory to dominant rout. 5 different goal scorers, 6 goals, and a result that was really never in question. Franklin debuted in the SGVF First Division at 15 years of age. Has been a mainstay in St. Vincent and the Grenadines' top flight ever since. He won the league title this past year with his club. He also was the college's, most promising athlete in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 2022. And you see why. 3 years later, flashing all of his skills in a career display on the international stage. Is there time for more carnage? Stewart forced wide. Effort deflected out for another corner. And it seems like the last measure of business, so to speak, is getting Anderson that hat trick. Someone who's only recorded 1 at the international level. Against Bermuda in the 23-24 Nations League. Franklin arcs it towards Anderson. Blake Bryant looking forward to Scipio. Gives chase, but Davis off his line, handling with relative aplomb. Stewart looking for Anderson. Lawrence seems intent on ensuring that hat trick does not come. Well, it's the first multi-goal display by Olex Anderson since that hat trick in 2023. Both goals coming on either side of halftime, the 21st and the 70th. And by the end of the evening, St. Vincent and the Grenadines would find themselves with a positive goal difference. Just one off of El Salvador's. Which again, should they topple Puerto Rico on the final match day, that would be the team they have their eyes on. Franklin has delivered a number of positive crosses that won't live in his Hall of Fame of highlights for the evening. Into the final minute of the initial 90. This is a result that is not and has not been up for debate for quite some time. A pair of first half tallies by Anderson and Stewart, providing St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a multi-goal advantage after just 25 minutes. And since the restart, they have piled it on. 4 goals in the second 45. And, well, a result that frankly reflects their dominance. Franklin. Stewart is looking for Edwards. And out to Scipio, who does lose out. And final set piece for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Ladies and gentlemen, before the official on the sideline has indicated that there will be a minimum of 4 minutes of added time to the second half.
Stewart, the only man that seems keen to put his boot to this. 4 minutes of added time. Dink towards the back stick, headed along, right into Lawrence's gloves. And it is all academic at this stage, although every goal may matter with how tight this group is. Goalkeeper off his line, a chance for Anguilla! Cleared off the line. Joran Gale was through for a moment, but Kanaja Joseph denying him. And that could prove massive at the end of the fixtures Tuesday. Gale skips round the keeper, has only the last defender to beat, but Kanaja Joseph times his trip to the dirt to perfection. And you do wonder, depending on how results break, what kind of impact that clearance could have. Scipio. A rare touch in the area for him tonight. Getting it back now. Lake Bryan curling it and overcooking it. The best bout of Anguilla attacking coming in stoppage time. Not a bad hit, this. Tries to curl it, and I don't think he fully wraps his boots around it. One final break for Anderson and company. Floated in, bicycle kick from Edwards. Didn't miss it by much. The flair beginning to take center stage for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Gale. Final minute of the added 4. 3 points, signed, sealed, and delivered for Vincey Heed. Stewart bypasses his defender toward the back post, which needed intervention. Antoine Fleming forcing St. Vincent and the Grenadines to settle for one final corner. Franklin. Here to the edge of the area. What a save that is from Lawrence. Andrew Johnson only finding the near post side netting. Terrific hit from the center back, and surprisingly quality technique from a center half as well. Just on the half volley, forces Lawrence into a difficult stop. And there is the full-time whistle. A 6-0 thrashing in favor of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They demolish Anguilla in the second half to notch their first 3 points of the 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign. They move within a point of the top 2 ahead of the final match day. What a dominant display this was. Oleg Sanderson's brace headlining, but 5 different goal scorers sees Vincey Heat to a much-needed 6-0 victory, which now takes them onto a positive goal difference as well. For the opposite number, Keith Jeffrey's side, it is regrouping and hoping for a strong display against El Salvador on June 7th. As things stand, they are eliminated. Their first foray into the second stage of Concacaf World Cup qualifying ends after 3 matches. We'll step aside briefly. When we return to look back at the full-time highlights of what was a comprehensive display by our hosts. Time for our full-time highlights from Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where it finishes St. Vincent 6, Anguilla 0. A must-win affair for both sides, the 2 pointless squads in Group F, and it was a rapid start. Oleg Sanderson opening the scoring with this clinical finish after just 21 minutes of play, and from there, the floodgates open for Vincey Heat. Just excellent interplay here. DL Spring plays him in, the last defender plays him onside, and Anderson with aplomb tucking it underneath Jelani Lawrence. It is a striker's finish by a proven forward that captains this St. Vincent and the Grenadines bunch. That was the first of 2 goals for him on the evening. The second was, you can basically give him an assist because he won the penalty. Just skips by Keon Lee. Lee gets none of the ball, all of his legs, and Cornelius Stewart, a very composed penalty from 12 yards. Opts for placement, just delivers beyond the reach of Lawrence, who does guess the right way, but the placement in the bottom right does the trick for the second all-time leading goal scorer in Vincentian football history. It was 2, and at halftime, St. Vincent and the Grenadines went in an intermission with the lead. From there, the floodgates open. Courtney Franklin making the immediate difference off the bench, dinking this to the back post. It was Micah Joseph who got his name on the score sheet in the 59th minute to pretty much wrap it up from there, but they weren't done just yet after that. You see DL Spring recycling, Franklin the terrific cross, and there to greet it, Joseph waiting. But then his replacement would step up just 3 minutes later. That was his last involvement, his first international goal, right on the precipice of the hour mark. Ezra Hendrickson loving it. Well, he would love this too, because the man he substituted for Joseph also scoring. Kyle Edwards, a towering header off of another really, really well-placed ball from Courtney Franklin. You're gonna see his reaction in a second. He was thrilled by this. It made it 4, and then the route was on for Vincey Heat. It's a difficult header, this, because the goalkeeper's bearing down, and he just has to dink it over him and then into the goal. It was very well worked by the Hartford athletic man who has spent his last 6 years playing club football in the U.S. Ezra Hendrickson loving that. And then the 5th comes. It was excellent interplay down this far side. Olex Anderson, the beneficiary, times his run to perfection. A textbook header. Not much to say other than it's routine. He's unmarked, and whenever you give a forward that free a header, he will make you pay. It was the 5th of 6, and then the 6th would come on the precipice of full time. Oleg Sanderson appraised his first multi-goal game since that aforementioned hat trick against Bermuda in the 2023-2024 Nations League. And then finally, in the 85th minute, to polish off what already was a scintillating display by Courtney Franklin, 2 assists, he adds a 3rd career international goal in spectacular style. Again, a really well-timed run, a delicious ball from Kanaija Joseph, and then the first time hit on the volley in midair. It is an acrobatic finish, and it is one that made it 6-0 after 85 minutes of play. It's where things finished. It was the first 3 points of the World Cup qualifying campaign in 2026 for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The full-time whistle sounded, and from there, a loud collective rejoice in Arnos Vale Stadium. Well, those are the full-time highlights. The score line finishes St. Vincent and the Grenadines 6, Anguilla 0. Now a positive goal difference for a side that lost both of its first 2 matches last June by multiple goals. They entered tonight with a -5 goal differential. It is now +1. The stats pretty much tell the full story. 2/3 of the ball to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They outshoot Anguilla 21-3 and a 10-1 shots on goal advantage for St. Vincent. So for Sam Goldfarb and our terrific crew from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we say so long where it finishes St. Vincent and the Grenadines 6, Anguilla 0. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. From St. Vincent, we say good night.